I died on my 23rd birthday and nobody noticed. Not when I collapsed at the dinner table, my champagne glass slipping from numb fingers. Not when I hit the floor, my chair clattering backward. My mother was busy taking photos of my sister Elise, cutting into her promotion cake. Never mind that it wasn't even Elise's birthday. My father was on his phone, probably texting his secretary. My grandmother was cooing over Elise's new Cartier bracelet, the one she'd bought for the birthday girl. It wasn't Elise's birthday, it was mine. But I'd learned years ago that in the Chen family, my existence was more of a clerical error than a celebration. "Help!" I tried to say, but my tongue was thick, my throat closing. The room tilted. I could feel my heart stuttering, missing beats like a scratched record. "Please!" "Elise, darling, smile bigger. This is going on Instagram," my mother sang out. I died alone, in a room full of my family, and the last thing I heard was my sister's laughter. Then I woke up. I was 15 again, staring at my childhood bedroom ceiling with its glow-in-the-dark stars, and I knew, with the crystal clarity of someone who'd already lived this hell once, that everything I remembered was real. The next 8 years of my life were already written in my bones. Every dismissal, every forgotten birthday, every time they'd called me by the wrong name. The university acceptance letter they'd accidentally thrown away because they thought it was junk mail. The job offer they'd convinced me to decline because Elise needs you at home right now. The slow, invisible death of being erased by the people who were supposed to love you. But now I had something they didn't expect. I had a second chance. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it trying to make them remember my name. This time, I was going to forget theirs. The first time around, I was born 3 minutes before my twin sister Elise. Those 3 minutes were apparently long enough for my mother to love me, or so she told the story. By the time Elise arrived, screaming and perfect, I'd already been demoted. "You were such a quiet baby," my mother liked to say, in that tone that made it clear quiet was not a compliment. "Elise, though, you always knew she was in the room." I learned early that invisibility was my default state. My parents weren't monsters, not in the obvious CPS-worthy way. They fed me, clothed me, kept a roof over my head. But love, attention, recognition, those were finite resources in the Chen household, and Elise had cornered the market. At 5 years old, I learned that my birthday party was really Elise's party, and I was just there. At 8, I learned that my mother couldn't actually remember which one of us was which in our baby photos. "You both look the same," she'd laugh, but she could always identify Elise. At 12, I'd learned that when I won the regional piano competition, my parents would miss my performance because Elise had a dance recital the same day. "Elise has been working so hard," my mother said, not even looking up from adjusting my sister's hair. "You understand, don't you, Emily?" "My name is Evelyn," I whispered. "What?" "Oh yes, of course, Evelyn. You don't mind, do you?" I minded, but I learned not to say so. The pattern continued through high school. Elise got the newest phone, the designer clothes, the car for her 16th birthday. I got hand-me-downs and, "You're so much more practical than your sister, Emmy." That wasn't even close to my name, but I'd stopped correcting them by then. I got perfect grades. Elise barely passed. But when college applications came around, my parents sat Elise down for hours, helping her craft the perfect essays, hiring a consultant, making sure every detail was flawless. When I asked for help, my father looked confused. "You're smart," he said, as if that explained everything. "You'll figure it out." I got into Stanford, full ride. The acceptance letter came on a Tuesday, and I left it on the kitchen counter where my mother would see it. She used it as a grocery list and threw it away. By the time I realized the acceptance deadline had passed, I ended up at the local state school while Elise went to a private university 3 hours away, the same one I'd dreamed of, though she'd barely gotten in, even with my parents paying full tuition. "It's better this way," my mother said when I cried. "We need you here. Elise needs someone to manage things while she's away." Manage things meant working part-time to pay for my own tuition while also doing all the household chores Elise had abandoned. It meant being on call for every family crisis, every forgotten appointment, every time someone needed something. My life became a series of interruptions to everyone else's main story. Then came the job offer. I was 22, about to graduate with a double major in computer science and business. A startup in San Francisco wanted me. Equity, six-figure salary, the works. It was my ticket out. I told my parents over dinner, hands shaking with excitement. San Francisco? My mother's face fell. But Elise is moving back home next month. She'll need help settling in, finding a job. I'm sure Elle can manage, I said, using my sister's nickname like a peace offering. She's very capable. Evie. My father's voice was stern. He almost never spoke to me directly, and I felt myself instinctively shrinking. Family comes first. Elise has been through a lot lately. She needs us. She needs you. What about what I need? The words came out before I could stop them. The table went silent. My mother looked at me like I'd started speaking Mandarin. My father's face hardened. Don't be selfish, he said. I turned down the job. I stayed. I helped Elise move back home, helped her set up her apartment, paid for by our parents, helped her prepare for interviews that she bombed, helped her through her breakups and her bad days and her hangovers, and on my 23rd birthday, I collapsed at the dinner table during Elise's promotion party, and nobody noticed until my body started to smell. The coroner said it was an undiagnosed heart condition, made worse by stress and exhaustion. My mother cried at the funeral about losing one of the twins, never quite managing to say my name. Elise gave a eulogy about my sister, beautiful and generic. My father stared at the casket like he was trying to remember who was inside. I was buried under a headstone that spelled my name wrong. Evelyn Chen, it read, beloved daughter. Not beloved enough for them to check the spelling, but now I was 15 again, and I was done. I swung my legs out of bed, my teenage body feeling strange and light after 8 years of bone-deep exhaustion. My room was exactly as I remembered. Small, practical, with the secondhand furniture my parents had bought for me while Elise got the matching set from Pottery Barn. The walls were bare because I'd never bothered to decorate. Why put down roots in a place where you were invisible? This time would be different. I grabbed my laptop, the ancient, slow one I'd bought with birthday money while Elise got the newest MacBook, and started planning. I had 8 years of knowledge, 8 years of knowing exactly which stocks would soar, which companies would boom, which opportunities were coming. But more importantly, I had 8 years of knowing exactly what my family would do and exactly how to avoid them. The first thing I did was change my birthday on every account, every piece of documentation I could access. I moved it 6 months earlier to a random Tuesday. Let them keep throwing parties for Elise on our birthday. I wouldn't be there. The second thing I did was start building my escape fund. I took the money I'd been saving for college, the money I'd stupidly told my parents about the first time, which had mysteriously disappeared when Elise needed a new car, and I opened an account at a different bank. Under a slightly different name, Evelyn Yu Chen. Close enough to be legal, far enough that my parents' automatic dismissal of Emmy or Eva or whatever they called me this week wouldn't connect it to their other daughter. I remembered the Bitcoin surge, the Tesla stocks, the pandemic pivots. I started small, careful, watching my modest savings grow. I did online work, coding, design, consulting, under pseudonyms. By the time I was 16, I had more money than most adults, and my family had no idea. They still forgot my birthday that year. I didn't remind them. I took myself out for dinner at a nice restaurant downtown, came home late with shopping bags full of things I actually wanted, and when my mother said, "Where have you been, Elena?" I just smiled and said, "Out." The confused look on her face was my first taste of freedom. The real test came during college application season. This time, I knew the game. I applied to Stanford again, plus 5 other schools I'd researched in my previous life. I wrote my essays in coffee shops and libraries, never at home. I asked my teachers for recommendations, not my parents for help. When the acceptance letters came, I had them sent to a P.O. box. Stanford said yes again. So did MIT, Columbia, and UC Berkeley. All with generous financial aid packages that my previous self had been too naive to hunt for. I didn't tell my family until the day I planned to leave. It was August, a week before freshman orientation. I walked into the kitchen with my suitcase already packed. My mother was making breakfast for Elise, who was sleeping in after a late night with friends. My father was reading the newspaper. It was such a perfect tableau of my irrelevance that I almost laughed. "I'm leaving for Stanford today," I said. My mother turned, spatula in hand, looking confused. "What?" "Stanford. I got in. Full ride plus living expenses. I start next week. But my father set down his newspaper. You didn't tell us you were applying. I didn't need to. Stanford. My mother's face was going through a complicated series of expressions. But that's so far away and expensive. We can't. You don't need to pay for anything. It's handled. But Elise, my mother started. What about Elise? I kept my voice pleasant, curious. She's going to state, right? I'm sure she'll be fine. Well, yes, but she'll need help moving in, and she has you for that. I picked up my suitcase. My flight leaves in 2 hours. Flight? My father stood up. Now wait just a minute. You can't just leave without discussing this with us. Why not? The question hung in the air. I watched them struggle to answer it, to articulate why I needed their permission for a life they'd never participated in anyway. Because you're our daughter, my mother finally said. Am I? I tilted my head. That's funny. Most daughters' parents remember their names. My mother's face flushed. That's not fair. You know we love both our girls equally. Do you? I smiled. It didn't reach my eyes. Quick question. What's my favorite color? Silence. What's my major going to be? More silence. When's my birthday? My father opened his mouth, closed it. My mother looked at the calendar on the wall as if the answer would be written there. Elise's birthday is October 14th, I said helpfully. Since we're twins, you'd think mine would be pretty easy to remember. October 14th, my mother said triumphantly, then less certainly. Right? Have a nice life, I said and walked out the door. Behind me, I heard my father call out, Ellen, wait. I didn't wait. Why would I? That wasn't even my name. Stanford was freedom. For the first time in my life, both lives, I was surrounded by people who saw me, who remembered my name, who valued my contributions not because they needed something from me, but because I was worth valuing. I devoured everything: computer science, business strategy, investment theory. I joined clubs, made friends, dated people who actually remembered my birthday. I built projects and launched a startup from my dorm room. By sophomore year, my small investment fund had grown into something significant, and by junior year, I'd dropped out to run my company full-time. The tech blog headlines called me a wunderkind. Evelyn Chen, 20, disrupts fintech with revolutionary AI trading platform. My company, Nullset, named because I was starting from nothing, from zero, from a set with no elements, was valued at $50 million by the time I was 22. I didn't go home for holidays. When my mother called, and she did call sporadically when she remembered she had another daughter, I let it go to voicemail. The messages were always the same. Emma, Eva, honey, it's Mom, just checking in, call us back. I never did. Elise called once my junior year. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Evelyn? Her voice was uncertain. She so rarely said my actual name that it sounded foreign in her mouth. Yes, it's Elise, your sister. I know who you are. I kept my voice neutral. Look, I know things were weird when you left, but can we talk? Maybe meet up? Why? Why? She sounded taken aback. Because we're sisters. Are we? I leaned back in my desk chair, watching my stock algorithms run on my multiple monitors. Define sister, because I'm not sure we're using the same definition. That's not fair, Evelyn. I know Mom and Dad weren't perfect, but what? But you got everything, and I got nothing, and I'm supposed to just, what? Forgive and forget? Come back and play happy family? I didn't get everything. Her voice was small now, defensive. You always acted like you were so much better than me, so much smarter. I was smarter, I said flatly. I was smarter and harder working, and I achieved more with none of the resources you had. And you know what? I'm not angry about that anymore. I don't care. That's the difference between us, Elise. You want me to come back and validate your guilt. I don't think about you at all. I hung up. It should have felt cruel. Instead, it felt like shedding a skin I'd outgrown years ago. The climax came on what would have been my 23rd birthday, the day I died in my previous life. My company was being acquired. Not because we were failing, but because we were succeeding so spectacularly that a major investment firm wanted us under their umbrella. The deal was worth $500 million. My stake would make me independently wealthy for life, and I'd stay on as CEO. The announcement was made at a press conference in San Francisco. Tech journalists, investors, competitors, everyone who mattered was there. I wore a white suit, custom tailored, and stood at the podium feeling like I was finally, truly alive. Then that's when I saw them, my family in the back of the room, my mother in a dress that was slightly too young for her, my father looking uncomfortable in a suit, and Elise. Elise looked exactly like I remembered from my previous life at this age. Tired, disappointed, ordinary. They'd come to celebrate my success. Or to claim it, more likely. I delivered my speech, answered questions, smiled for cameras. I didn't look at them once. When it was over, when I was surrounded by congratulations and champagne, they pushed through the crowd. "Evelyn!" My mother's voice was bright, performative. "Sweetheart, we're so proud of you." I turned, my face politely curious. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" My mother's smile faltered. "What? Evelyn, it's Mom." "Mom?" I looked at my assistant standing beside me. "Do you know these people?" "Should I call security, Miss Chen?" she asked, playing along perfectly. "Evelyn." My father stepped forward. "Stop this, we're your family." "Family." I tasted the word. That's a strong term. Family usually implies people who know each other, people who show up for each other, people who remember each other's names. "We've always remembered your name," my mother said, but her voice was uncertain. "Really?" I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a photo. It was my headstone from my previous life. "Is that right? Because in another life, you couldn't even spell it correctly when it mattered most." They couldn't see the photo. I'd angled it away, but the point landed. My mother's face crumpled. "We made mistakes," my father said. "We know that now. But you're our daughter. You'll always be our daughter." Funny thing about that, I slipped my phone away. "I changed my legal name 3 years ago. It's just Evelyn Yu now. Drop the Chen." "So technically, I'm not your daughter anymore. Not on paper, anyway. And honestly, not in any way that matters. You can't just—" Elise pushed forward, her face red. "You can't just erase us." "Can't I?" I met her eyes fully for the first time. "You erased me for 23 years. Sorry, 15 years in this timeline. I'm just returning the favor." "We never erased you," my mother cried. "We loved you." "No." My voice was soft now, almost kind. "You loved the idea of having 2 daughters. You loved telling people you had twins. But me, specifically, Evelyn Chen, the actual person, you never saw me. You called me by the wrong name. You forgot my birthday. You threw away my Stanford acceptance letter. You chose Elise over me 1,000 times, in 1,000 ways, and then you acted like I was selfish for wanting more." "We can make it up to you," my father said. "We can start over. You can leave." I gestured to my assistant, who nodded to security. "These people are making me uncomfortable. Please escort them out." "Evelyn!" My mother reached for me, but security was already there, politely but firmly guiding them away. "Evelyn, please, we're sorry. We love you." I watched them being led to the exit. My mother was crying. My father looked shell-shocked. Elise was arguing with the security guard, her voice carrying across the room. "Wait!" she called out. "At least tell me. Tell me you remember us. Tell me you know who we are." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I turned to my assistant and said, "Who were those people?" "I'm not sure, Miss Yu," she replied smoothly. "Some fans, perhaps?" "Probably." I accepted another glass of champagne from a passing waiter. There are so many faces at these events. They all blur together after a while. I watched Elise's face crumble as she was escorted out the door. Part of me, the part that was still 15 years old and desperate for their love, wanted to call her back, wanted to forgive them, to have the family reconciliation moment that every story promised was possible. But I'd already lived that story. I'd already spent one lifetime trying to make them see me, trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. I'd already died invisible. This time, I chose myself. I turned back to the party, to the investors and journalists and colleagues who knew my name, who valued my work, who saw me. And for the first time in either of my lives, I felt no guilt about it. 5 years passed. Nullset went from strength to strength. We expanded internationally, launched new products, revolutionized how people thought about AI-driven financial planning. I was on Forbes 30 Under 30, then Fortune's Most Powerful Women. Then, by the time I turned 28, I was testifying before Congress about financial technology regulation. I built a life I loved. I had a penthouse in San Francisco with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. I had friends who texted me on my actual birthday, the fake one I'd created 6 months off from my twin sister. I dated, broke up, dated again. I traveled. I invested in causes I cared about. I slept well at night. I never went back home. Sometimes I'd see updates about them through the grapevine. The tech world was small, and my origins were well documented in my earlier press profiles. Elise had bounced between jobs, never quite landing anywhere. She'd married at 26, divorced at 27. My parents had downsized their house after my father's business hit hard times during a market downturn. They were fine, not wealthy, but fine, comfortable. I could have helped them. I had more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. I didn't. One day, an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "From your sister." I almost deleted it, but something, curiosity maybe, or the ghost of the girl I used to be, made me open it. "Evelyn, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you probably won't even read this. But I'm writing anyway because I need to say this, even if you never respond. You were right about everything, and I was the favorite. I did get everything handed to me. And I took it all without question because it felt good to be chosen, to be loved, to be the special one. I never thought about what that meant for you. I never thought about you at all, really. You were just there, background noise. It wasn't until you left that I realized what I'd lost. Not because Mom and Dad suddenly loved me less. They didn't. They just needed me more. Suddenly, I was the one they called when something broke, when they needed help, when they wanted someone to manage things. And I hated it. I hated being needed like that, being reduced to a tool. And I realized that's what you'd been your whole life. Not a daughter, not a person. Just a tool they used when it was convenient and forgot about when it wasn't. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to come back. I don't deserve either of those things. I'm just apologizing for all of it. For every birthday I didn't celebrate with you, every achievement I overshadowed, every time I let Mom and Dad forget you existed. For treating you like you didn't matter. You matter. You always mattered. And I'm sorry I never told you that when it would have made a difference. I hope you're happy. I hope you're building the life you always deserved. And I hope, somewhere deep down, you've managed to forget about us completely. Because we don't deserve even the energy it takes to hate us. Take care of yourself, Elise. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went to stand by the window, looking out at the city lights. Did I forgive her? No. Forgiveness felt too generous, too final. This wasn't a story about redemption and reconciliation. This was a story about escape and survival. But did I understand? Maybe. Elise had been a child too, caught in the same dysfunction I was. She'd been raised to believe she was special, that love was something you won by being perfect. She'd been set up to fail just as much as I had, just in a different way. The difference was that I'd broken the cycle. I'd chosen to forget them, to let go, to build something new. She was still trapped in it, still trying to make sense of a family that had never made sense. I didn't reply to the email, but I didn't delete it either. My 28th birthday, my real birthday, October 14th, came and went unremarked by anyone who knew me. My friends threw me a party 6 months earlier on the fake birthday I'd created. They gave me thoughtful gifts and sang off-key karaoke and hugged me tight. But on the real day, I took myself to the cemetery. I'd never been able to find my grave from my previous life. Somehow that timeline had been erased when I came back, or existed in a parallel dimension, or whatever metaphysical explanation you wanted to apply. But I'd found a quiet cemetery outside the city, one with a view of the hills, and I'd bought a plot there. Not for me, not yet, but as a memorial to the girl I used to be. The girl who died invisible and forgotten. I'd had a small marker placed. Evelyn Chen, remembered. Just those 2 words, because in the end, that's all any of us really want, to be remembered, to matter. I sat by the marker as the sun set, thinking about both my lives. The first one, where I'd bent myself into smaller and smaller shapes, trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. And this one, where I'd expanded into myself, taken up room, refused to diminish. I didn't save you, I said to the ghost of my former self. I couldn't go back and make them love you. I couldn't force them to see you. I couldn't change who they were. The breeze rustled through the trees. But I saved me. This version of me. I gave us a chance to be more than just the forgotten daughter. I gave us permission to forget them right back. It felt right sitting there, peaceful, like closing a circle that had been open too long. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the man I'd been seeing for 6 months. The first relationship that felt real and solid and like it might actually last. Dinner at 7? Want to introduce you to my family. They're dying to meet you. I smiled and texted back, I'd love that. Meeting his family was terrifying and wonderful all at once. They'd remember my name. They'd ask me questions about my life and actually listen to the answers. They'd see me the way Marcus saw me, as someone worth knowing. That's the thing about chosen family. You get to pick people who choose you back. I stood up, brushing grass off my jeans. I'm okay now, I told the marker. We're okay. We made it. And I walked back to my car, back to my life, back to a world where I was seen and known and remembered, where I mattered. The epilogue to my story came 3 years later when I was 31. My company had gone public. I was worth, on paper, more money than I could conceptualize. I'd been named one of Time's 100 most influential people. I'd given a TED Talk about building systems that saw the invisible, that gave voice to the voiceless. It was personal, but no one knew just how personal. I'd also gotten married. To Marcus, who'd never once forgotten my name, my birthday, or what mattered to me. We'd bought a house in Marin with enough bedrooms for the family we were planning. His parents had welcomed me with open arms, with love that felt foreign and wonderful. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, my assistant buzzed me. Miss Yu, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your mother. I looked up from my desk. My mother? That's what she said. Should I send her in? I don't know why I agreed to see her. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the desire for closure. Maybe just the simple human instinct to look back at where you've been, to measure the distance you've traveled. The woman who walked into my office was older, smaller than I remembered. Her hair was more gray than black now. She was carrying a purse I recognized from 15 years ago. Fake designer, the kind she'd been so proud of. She looked around my corner office with its art and awards and floor-to-ceiling windows, and her face did something complicated. Evelyn, she said. Hello. I didn't stand up, didn't offer her a seat, just watched her, waiting. You're probably wondering why I'm here. Not really, but you're here anyway, so you might as well say what you came to say. She flinched at my tone. Your father passed away, 6 months ago, heart attack. I felt something at that news, not grief exactly, but a distant echo of what grief might have been. I'm sorry for your loss. He wanted, she swallowed hard. At the end, he wanted to see you. He kept calling for you, kept saying your name. My name? I raised an eyebrow. Did he get it right? She closed her eyes. Yes, he did. Too little, too late. I know. She sat down in one of my guest chairs without being invited. I know it's too late. I know we don't deserve your forgiveness. But I needed you to know that we realized, eventually, what we'd done, what we'd lost. And what did you lose? You. Her voice broke. We lost you. Our daughter. The smart one. The capable one. The one who actually made something of herself. We lost you, and it's our fault, and we have to live with that. I should have felt satisfaction at her words, victory, but all I felt was tired. You're right, I said. It is too late. Not because I haven't forgiven you. I have, actually. Forgiveness was easy once I stopped needing anything from you. But it's too late because I've moved on. I built a life without you. I found people who love me properly, who see me, who value me. I found a family that chose me, and I chose them back. I'm glad. She was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. I'm glad you found that. Even if it wasn't with us. How's Elise? She's struggling. Her second marriage just ended. She's back home with me. She drinks too much. My mother looked down at her hands. I think she's jealous of you, but also, She misses you. She says you were the only one who ever really saw her for who she was, not who we wanted her to be. That surprised me, but it also didn't. Elise and I had been twins, after all, two sides of the same coin, both victims of the same dysfunction in different ways. Tell her I hope she finds her own path out, I said. It's not too late for her either, but she has to choose herself. No one can do it for her. My mother nodded. She stood up, clutching her purse. Can I hug you? Just once? I considered it. This woman who'd given birth to me but never really mothered me. Who'd fed me but never nourished me. Who'd kept me alive but never made me feel living. No, I said gently. I don't think that would be good for either of us. She nodded again like she'd expected that answer. Goodbye, Evelyn. Goodbye. I paused, and in that pause was everything. The final, ultimate reversal. The perfect symmetry. I couldn't remember her name, not her first name anyway. I knew her as Mom, but that title felt wrong now, too intimate for the stranger standing in front of me. I could see the moment she realized what was happening, the way her face crumpled with recognition. The recognition that she'd done this to me 1,000 times, and now it was being done to her. Goodbye, I repeated simply, not filling in the blank. She turned and walked out of my office. I watched the door close behind her, and then I turned back to my computer, to my work, to my life. That night, Marcus and I had dinner with his parents. They asked about my day, and I told them about the strange visit from a woman claiming to be my mother. That must have been difficult. Marcus's mother, Helen, her name was Helen, and I'd never once forgotten it, said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. It was strange, I admitted, like being visited by a ghost. Someone from a life I used to live. Do you regret not having a relationship with your birth family? Marcus's father asked. Not judging, just curious. I can't imagine growing up like that. I don't regret it, I said slowly, thinking it through. I think some people spend their whole lives trying to fix their broken families, trying to earn love that should have been freely given. And that's valid if that's what they need to do, but for me, the healthiest thing I ever did was walk away, was let them fade into irrelevance, was forget them the way they forgot me. To forgetting, Marcus said, raising his wine glass with a slight smile. To forgetting, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. We drank, and the conversation moved on to lighter topics. Helen told a funny story about Marcus as a child. His father complained good-naturedly about his golf game. Marcus stole food off my plate, and I stole his dessert in retaliation. It was ordinary, warm, real. It was everything I'd never had the first time around, and everything I'd fought to build this time. Sometimes people ask me for advice. How did you build such a successful company so young? How did you know which risks to take? How did you overcome your obstacles? I never tell them the truth. I never tell them I've lived this life twice, that I had the cheat code of foreknowledge and second chances. But I do tell them this. Know when to walk away. Know when something is costing you more than it's worth. And know that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is forget. Forget the people who hurt you. Forget the expectations that weighed you down. Forget the version of yourself that was too small, too quiet, too eager to please. Start from nothing, I say, from a null set, and build something that's entirely, authentically yours. They think I'm being metaphorical. They don't know I literally did that. Erased my old life, changed my name, started over with nothing but knowledge and determination. But that's okay. They don't need to know the details. They just need to know it's possible, to forget, to start over, to choose yourself. I'm 31 years old, and I've lived more than 31 years of life. I've died invisible and been reborn determined. I've been erased and rebuilt myself from memory. I've been forgotten and chosen to forget in return, and I'm happy, and that's the revenge in the end. Not that they suffer, though they do, in their small, quiet ways. Not that they regret, though they might now that it's too late. The revenge is that I'm happy. I'm successful and loved and seen and valued. I wake up every morning next to someone who knows my name, my real name, and says it with tenderness. I go to work that challenges and fulfills me. I come home to chosen family who celebrate my victories and support me through my struggles. I am remembered, not by them. I don't need that anymore. But by the people who matter. by the people I chose and who chose me back. My mother was right about one thing all those years ago. I was quiet. I was forgettable. I was easy to overlook. But I was also a survivor. And survivors don't just endure. We escape. We transform. We forget the people who tried to erase us and we remember ourselves instead. I didn't stop them from forgetting my name. I just stopped remembering theirs. And that, it turns out, was all the revenge I ever needed.
Seth, do you long for the comfort of Bob's strong building hands? It's okay if yes. It's okay. You can say yes. Bill and Ben, the flower pot men. I remember Bill and Ben. Bill and Ben, the flower pot men. It was something like that, right? God. Fucking tune. Oh, Vulture Wolfpack, welcome in. Thank you so much. You remembered it? That was it? Hell yeah. I'm a voice actor, so that's part of me old jobby. That's part of my job. Vibes forever. Thank you for the follow. Quinn! Hi! Thank you. Mom, the neighbor's painting again. Hi, Foodie. I thought we were talking about Thomas the Tank Engine. What? Until Bob the Builder? Bob's bricked up. Sir? Should you be doing that in front of children? Thanks, Quinn. Oh, vibes. I so need this water. Thank you. Just started 2 months ago. I learned very fast. My background and profile photo are 2 of my paintings. Vibes. Oh my god. It's beautiful. What do you paint with? A bricklayer. Hi, blacksmith. An Irish accent, Redeem. That seems dangerous. I have to feed the cats. It's also been 5 hours. Oops. I do wanna do more, but it's all right.